Please give a warm Georgia Tech welcome to our guest, Mr. Hank Halter.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. I don't know, do you guys still have happy hour at the end of the class day? Is that what I'm in between? But I'm so impressed you came. I'm particularly impressed you came to see a Duke grad here on the Georgia campus. So Georgia Tech's campus. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm here and thrilled to have the opportunity to talk about leadership. And you know, you'll hear from different leaders throughout your college years, and you'll learn from each one, and each one will have a different message. They'll have a different set of ideas as to what makes a successful leader, what is successful leadership. But at the end of the day, I think as you put all of those messages together, you will see a common theme that goes between each of those leaders and their philosophies on leadership. Today what I'd like to do is talk about essential leadership strategies, and I like to think of them in terms of just 5. You know, one essential strategy is cultivating entrepreneurship, and I'll talk a bit about that, and I'll talk about companies that have that philosophy do very, very well. Next, something that I think is equally important is championing core values. Core values are essential for any organization, and it's imperative that that organization's employees and members understand the core values that are in place. I think the next thing that's equally important is a company and an organization should always invest in its employees. And I'll give you my perspective on that. I'll certainly talk about what Delta Community does in terms of investing in employees and why that's so important and so impactful on the customers or members of that organization. Measuring performance is something else that is ultra critical in any company, whether it's a service organization, manufacturing, anything, transportation, anything at all that does business, it's important to measure performance. And then lastly, something that I also view very, very integral to the success of an organization is committing to the community in which you're privileged to serve. I think the first thing, when you think about cultivating entrepreneurship, initially you think entrepreneurship, well, maybe it's small companies that are in the infancy. One of these companies, Amazon.com, you probably know, started in a garage. It was a very small business, and you know Amazon today, it's the go-to place for many people in terms of getting almost anything on earth. But if you look at these companies, these are very successful entrepreneurship companies. These companies have a philosophy that focuses on thinking out of the box, thinking of new ways to do business, new products and services. And these companies are very different in age. If you look on the left side, I think the younger companies are there. And look on the right, Coca-Cola, a company that's located right here in the heart of Atlanta, a very, very successful company, and a company that's been around for over 100 years. But each of these companies has that common thread. They think about their products and services. Their employees are focused on what do our customers want, what can we do differently, how can we think out of the box, how can we lead the pace of change. That's entrepreneurship. It's not just simply a couple people creating a new business. That is entrepreneurship, but even companies that are very, very established, companies that have product lines that are known worldwide, they are still thinking. And entrepreneurship is also about making decisions, putting actions in place, and then being willing to change gears. A company is successful when it also recognizes something we're doing isn't meeting our expectations, and they're willing to make a change and move in a slightly different direction. Now, I want to talk a bit about credit unions. How many in the room are members of Delta Community Credit Union? Excellent. We'll have applications in the back for the rest of you at the end of the presentation. How many are members of a credit union, not necessarily Delta Community? Okay, great. And let me first talk about the difference between credit unions and other financial institutions, and then I want to illustrate for you how credit unions exhibit the entrepreneurial spirit. A credit union, as you heard from Cecilia in the introduction, credit unions are member-owned. At Delta Community, we have over 325,000 members. Those members have deposits with us. They may have loans with us. They may be individuals that are young in their life cycle. Maybe they might be in their late teens. We have individuals that are in their retirement years, and they have retirement products with us, such as IRAs. But all of those individuals are related in the sense that they are owners of Delta Community. We offer a product line that is probably everything that you can imagine you would want in your financial life: checking, savings, money market. We offer a wide variety of loans, both consumer loans and commercial loans, home mortgages, car loans, no-fee Visa Platinum Rewards credit cards. We have commercial lending for our members. And also, as I mentioned, retirement. We have IRAs and similar type products. So if you think about the life cycle of an individual, credit union, particularly our credit union, is able to offer you those products and services that you will need in your financial life. And our focus at Delta Community Credit Union is to help people get more out of their financial lives. And how we're different than other financial institutions like a bank, while our products and services are very similar in many ways to what a bank would offer, there is one key difference. We are owned by our members. Those 325,000 members we have at Delta Community, they own us. Whereas at a bank, there's usually a third-party investor that is the owner. So consequently, when we derive a profit, and last year at Delta Community we derived $46 million of profit from our operation in 2014, we returned all $46 million of profit back to our members. We offer higher dividends on deposits, lower interest rates on loans. We don't have fees, or if we do have a fee, it's generally lower than what a bank would charge. But again, we're not for profit, but we're insured like a bank, but we're member-owned. Over to a bank, when a bank earns profit, that profit doesn't go to the individuals that have accounts there, that profit goes to the investors. So a very different proposition. But everything we do at Delta Community Credit Union, and what all credit unions do, is they work for their owners, their members. And for us, that entrepreneurial spirit is seen each and every day when we work with our members and suggest products and services to them that they may not be taking advantage of. Or maybe they have one of those products, maybe they have a car loan at a competitor at a bank and they're paying a substantially higher interest rate. Delta Community offers our products and services, as I mentioned, generally have lower rates, and that's of advantage and service to our members. We also have members that have loans with us. You know, think of a home mortgage. Depending on when you got your home mortgage, your interest rate might be substantially higher than the interest rate offered today. But what we do is, even though our members already have that loan with us, we might suggest to them, did you consider refinancing? Because you can refinance at today's rates, which are lower. It'll save you money. Of course, it will reduce our revenue and it will reduce our profit. But at the end of the day, we're not about making a profit for our members. We're about serving our members and helping them with their financial lives and help them get more out of it. And that's really how credit unions exhibit the entrepreneurial spirit. And as you heard Cecilia mention in the introduction, Delta Community is Georgia's largest credit union, and it's about by twofold. I'll show you a slide shortly, but we have almost $5 billion of assets at Delta Community, and that's because of our 325,000 members and the products and services that we offer them. To give you a little bit more history of Delta Community, this year we're celebrating our 75th anniversary. We were founded in 1940 by 8 employees of Delta Airlines, and we were called the Delta Employees Credit Union. We had $45 of assets. And then in 1983, by that point, we had grown substantially. We had $200 million of assets, and at that point, we became Georgia's largest credit union. Again, we were still offering our products and services to the employees of Delta Airlines. And then in 1994, we hit a milestone. Our membership grew to 100,000 members. Still, we were Georgia's largest credit union, and we are today. And in 2005, our board of directors made a very key decision that changed the strategic focus for Delta Community Credit Union, and it's just that community. We expanded our field of membership to include residents of Metro Atlanta. So no longer at the credit union did you have to be an employee of Delta Airlines. Just being a resident of the 11 Metro Atlanta counties in Georgia here would enable you to have membership. So today, we have members at Delta Community Credit Union that live up as far north as Cherokee and Hall County, as far south as Henry and Fayette, and most of the counties in between. But just being a resident of one of those counties enables you to join Delta Community Credit Union. And we have a branch right around the corner on 10th Street. So for those of you that want to be members, as I said, we'll be happy to set you up at the end of the talk today. But that's the focus of Delta Community Credit Union, is focusing on our members and helping them with their financial lives. And due to our success, if you look at where we are today in 2015, our membership has soared to over 325,000 members. And we have $4.9 billion of assets and working towards $5 billion, hopefully very soon, as our members continue recognizing the value of putting their assets with Delta Community. We have 818 employees that work every day for one sole purpose, and that's our members. Our members are the sole reason we exist at Delta Community, and that's the biggest difference between a credit union and another financial institution. Our sole interest is our members. And while we have 325,000 members, to each one of those members, that member considers themselves the sole member of Delta Community, and that's how we treat our members. Our interaction with that individual that's talking to one of our member service agents, or perhaps a teller, someone that's in a branch, our interaction with that individual is treated as if that is the one and only member at Delta Community, and we give that trusted advice and personal service that Delta Community is known for, really the trusted advice and personal service that our employees are known for. Something else that I think is very important and truly an essential leadership skill and strategy is championing core values. And also I want to point out, I really debated whether my first message would be about cultivating entrepreneurship or championing core values, because both are so ultra critical to any successful organization and to a successful leader. So I would say both of these, while one is coming after the other, both are of paramount importance in my mind. But championing core values is critical. I think if you look at successful companies, those companies most definitely have core values that are known and embraced by their employees, known and embraced by their customers. And for Delta Community, we have 5 core values: dedication, integrity, ownership, flexibility, and teamwork. And when you look at those core values, what are those core values doing? Why do we have them? Core values help a company define its corporate vision. They give the employees a common purpose with which to relate and work from. Core values are also important because they help set and influence the interaction between the company's employees and the customers that interact every day with them. Core values also help provide shape to the organizational structure. And then lastly, and I think most important, those core values really drive organizational success. And as I mentioned, if you look at successful companies, core values are prominent. It's known by the employees, it's known by the customers, they're front and center. And companies that it's kind of vague, the core values really are undefined, or they're not really consistent with each other and certainly not embraced by leaders and the company itself. I think what you find there is those companies are not as successful as they absolutely could be. And that's why I think it's so important that championing core values is an essential leadership strategy, both individually and from a corporate organizational perspective. Something else that's ultra critical and very important to do is invest in employees. Employees are essential to any successful organization, and any organization that fails to realize that is not reaching its potential. And I say investing in employees, it's much more than just competitive wages and benefits. I mean, those are essential to the relationship between employees and their company or their employer, but it's much more than just compensation. It's giving training to your employees. It's giving them tools to serve their customers, giving them the resources that they need to be successful for those customers. It's things like succession planning, things like talking to employees about what do you want to do, what's your career objectives, what do you want to do next year, what do you want to do 5 years and 10 years out. And I know that's something that all of you are also thinking about. You're wondering, what am I going to do in the future? Where do I want to be next year when I get out of school? What do I hope to do and accomplish? But also, I know you're all thinking at some point, what do I want to do 5 years, 10 years out? That's the relationship and part of the investment that we at Delta Community do with our employees. We call it human resource planning. And through that process, we create an individual development plan for each and every employee. We listen to the employee, we understand where do they want to be, what are their goals and objectives, and then we look at what are their strengths and what are their developmental opportunities, things that they need to hone before they can be competitive to get to where they want to go, and we work together. But it's that kind of investment in employees, again, not just compensation, but it's training, it's succession planning, it's embracing your employee and investing there that delivers success for the organization. You know, I've been employed by service organizations my entire professional career, and no service organization in particular can be successful if it doesn't invest in its employees. How can you shortchange your employees and expect them to deliver superior service for your customers or members? It just doesn't work. But companies that are successful, highly successful, have very happy employees, and not just happy because the competitive wages, it's the full employment proposition. But that is an essential leadership strategy and one that's been proven time and time again to be the recipe for success. Something else that we look at very carefully at Delta Community Credit Union is measuring performance. Measuring performance is also something that's essential, a key leadership strategy, because you need to know where you are. You You need to know how you're doing compared to your expectations. You also need to measure performance related to member or customer perceptions. What are your customers thinking? What are they saying? That's a performance element. And I think a lot of companies measure performance, but then they don't take the necessary step of acting on the performance. And that's an integral step to the leadership strategy, is not only knowing the information, and business intelligence departments are hugely critical, and at Delta Community we have a very impressive business intelligence department that garners data, helps us interpret the data, understand it, but equally important, we use that data to make decisions. And as you think about leadership and what leaders have to do, they have to make tough decisions every day. And the riskiest strategy of all is when a leader attempts to make a decision, but they don't have full information. That's fraught with danger, and that's critical, not only dangerous for that leader, it's dangerous for the entire organization. So that's why measuring performance is so important. And it's also not only measuring the performance of your products and services or measuring the performance of your customer expectations relative to your delivery, it's also important to measure performance of your employees. Give your employees reasons to understand how they're doing, help them develop. All employees want to do well, but they need feedback, they need coaching, and they need tools to understand and how they're being measured. And that's something that goes very well with a leadership strategy, is communicating with your employees, helping them reach their goals, because when your employees are able to reach their goals, they're equally reaching the goals for the organization and ultimately serving the customers and the members in the highest regard. Committing to the community is also the fifth leadership strategy that I hold very important. And when you think about the communities that your company or your organization serves, you need to be part of that community. You need to embrace that community. Your employees want to embrace that community. And at Delta Community Credit Union, we put the community up as in very high regard with our members. After all, community is part of our name. And when you look at Delta Community Credit Union this year, we'll invest approximately $650,000, that's Delta Community and our employees collectively, $650,000 in dozens of worthwhile organizations in Metro Atlanta. We believe sincerely that a strong partnership with the community benefits the community. It allows us to strengthen the community, and if the community thrives, our members that live in that community will thrive. And if our members thrive, then certainly Delta Community thrives. But it's much more than just donating dollars to a community. That certainly helps, but it's the volunteerism of our employees. Our employees will donate over 1,000 hours of volunteer service this year to benefit the community, and it benefits our employees. It gives them a common purpose and a common bond working together towards an objective. It strengthens our organization, and as I said, it not only strengthens us, it strengthens the community that we're privileged to serve. And a strong community benefits that sole reason that we're here at Delta Community, and it's to serve our members. There's a quote from our 33rd US President, Harry Truman, here that I think is very appropriate. When you think about essential leadership strategies, what that means for a successful organization, think about progress. Progress occurs when courageous, skillful leaders seize the opportunity to change things for the better. And that's what leadership's all about, is seizing opportunities, making decisions. It's the 5 essential leadership strategies that I'm touching on: cultivating entrepreneurship, championing core values, investing in employees or your team. It's looking at performance. How are you doing? How do you measure it? But how do you act on it and change things for the better? And then committing to the communities that you serve, investing in those areas, embracing the community, and working together to strengthen the overall organization that you're supporting. So with that, that is my essential 5 leadership strategies, but something that I ask you to do as the semester goes on. You've heard some leaders already speak to you earlier. You'll have more as the semester goes on. Look at the common themes between all of us. I think you'll hear very similar messages. Each one of us will have individual points to make about leadership and entrepreneurship and how that impacts your lives and the future organizations you might be a part of. But at the end of the day, there is absolutely that common theme, that underlying message that is consistent among all of them. And that's why these organizations are so successful, because they embrace those 5 leadership strategies that I'm talking about. Thank you. Thank you. Sure.
So we're going to open it up for questions now. has your, is it on? Okay.
Yep, sure.
How has your personal leadership style changed since you became CEO of Delta Community? And like, have you had to integrate your own style with the style of the company?
Sure, that's a great question. And with my background, I was privileged to serve on the board of directors of Delta Community for almost 10 years prior to becoming CEO. So I knew the company intimately. I embraced the culture of Delta Community. And I wouldn't say that my leadership style has actually changed since I became CEO, but certainly my passion has been embraced by the coworkers and the colleagues, the 818 employees that I mentioned earlier at Delta Community. But honestly, I think it's important for a leader to assess the environment in which they're going into for the first time, to understand how that culture is today and how you want to influence that. I think it's very risky. It's kind of like that measuring performance strategy that I pointed out. Going into an organization on the first day, that's what you start doing. You're measuring performance. You're measuring the landscape. You're measuring how the company performs. And I think it's risky to go in and just assume I've got to make wholesale sweeping changes, or my own leadership style, these people better adapt or they're in trouble. It's really, you work together. And it's just like in a household. The people in an individual household will adapt, and it's not just one person that their influence determines it across the household. It's a collective. And that's really how I've gone to Delta Community and led it. It's the collective 818 employees of Delta Community that really help define that passion and mission. Thank you.
So you talked about the 5 leadership strategies you use. Are any of these, would you say, which one is the most important to you, or what is like your greatest leadership strength as the CEO of Delta Community Credit Union?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. When you think about those 5 leadership strategies, I think cultivating entrepreneurship, championing core values, investing in employees, measuring performance, and committing to the community, it's tough to say which one of those is the most important, which one's second. I almost would prefer, although it doesn't lend itself to PowerPoint, to have all 5 of those on a horizontal plane, because to me, they're all equally important. You know, in a service organization especially, you can't be successful if you don't invest in your employees. You can't do anything without employees. And I think that's also, while it seems elementary, there's organizations that fail because they did not embrace that. Core values are ultra critical as well. And it's important not only to have core values, but that the organization understands them and embraces them. And at Delta Community, for example, every new employee goes through an orientation where they understand these core values. It's not just presented to them, but it's explained to them. And as part of our interview process, we also assess and ensure that the individual will be capable of embracing the philosophy and the core values of Delta Community. But then it's also equally important to cultivate that entrepreneurial spirit. And it doesn't matter, service, manufacturing, transportation, you've got to always be out in front, understanding what products and services, what new ideas, what changes should you be offering, and how to do it. That's of equal importance. So that's why I struggle with, on a vertical axis, how to stack those up, but really put them on the same, because they really are. And of course, measuring performance, you've got to know that before you make decisions, and you have to be willing to make decisions to reverse course or go in a slightly different direction if that's what the information shows. And the community that you're privileged to serve, also, you have to be part of that and partner with that community, and they will partner with you equally well. Hi.
So it sounds like developing and maintaining a really strong company culture is very important to you guys at the Delta Community Credit Union.
Certainly.
And so what have you found as a leader has been the greatest challenge in doing that, particularly on an individual level?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the challenges at Delta Community is we've grown. If you recall the chart I showed where we started in 1940, and by, I think, 1983, we were the largest credit union in Georgia. And today, we're more than double the size of our nearest competitor in terms of size, in terms of assets, employees. And I think as you get larger, it's critical that you understand the complexities. And to add to that, we're in a very complex industry. Regulatory environment is constantly changing. You have new products and services that are being introduced by your competitors. You have your own products and services that you want to cultivate and go with. And I think for us, one of the cultural challenges that we've had for a while, and it's a good challenge to have, is simply you can't do everything today. You can't roll out all these products and services at once or make these changes or move in a different direction simultaneously. And it's prioritization that I think is so critical for us, is prioritizing and being willing to reprioritize. And over time, I think we're doing a much better job of that, but that's something that you have 800 employees at Delta Community that want to deliver. They're hungry to deliver, and that's terrific. What we have to do as leaders is figure out how can we work with our employees to prioritize their activities so we have successful results in succession. Sure.
I have a question.
Hey.
Could you tell us a little bit about your career path from being a student to your first job and then CFO and now CEO?
Sure. No, I loved college, by the way. That was wonderful. But no, I majored in accounting, and I went into accounting because I liked math. The way I think, I like to know that there's a formula and you follow that formula. And honestly, after 4 years working at Ernst & Young, I decided to go back to college. I went to Duke University, and upon graduating there, I went to American Airlines, and I had a passion for aviation. So working there very much dovetailed with my personal interests, but also the role I went into at American Airlines was a very analytical role in the department called Financial Planning and Analysis. And those of you that are familiar with Atlanta, back in 1998, Delta Airlines was growing and had tremendous opportunities employment-wise, and I elected to change airlines from American to Delta. Not unlike when you guys all decided to go from other airlines and become Delta frequent flyers. I did that in 1998 and had a wonderful opportunity and run at Delta Airlines, still focusing on the job that was consistent with my passion and also capitalizing on my skills. And that's something that I think is important for all of you as you're considering, wherever you are in your cycle of education, whether undergrad, graduate, or even postgraduate, thinking about the future and looking out 5-10 years, is always focused on, what's my passion? What do I want to do? What are my skills? What are my gaps? And then be willing to take those roles that help close those gaps. I learned early on that just taking a job for the sake of taking it, maybe it's a fun job, maybe it's glamorous, that is a fun thing to do, so to speak, but it may not ultimately help your career. Taking those kind of roles that are fun and glamorous, if they provide you skills and training to close those gaps, to enable you to keep moving forward, that's wonderful. But that's something that I learned early on. And actually my advice, quite honestly, is go for the toughest job in the organization. Go for the one that maybe a lot of people don't want to go for, but that's the job you're going to make a name for yourself, plain and simple. And that's the one that you'll make the most impact on. Even if you still have gaps in your development and you need those opportunities, go for those tough jobs, because those are the ones that people will remember you for, and you'll also be competitive as you go for other opportunities down the road. Thank you. Yeah. Hi.
Okay, hi. So in one of my classes, we've been talking a lot about how these leaders that we've been listening to are integrating their passion with, obviously making a name for themselves and being successful. And you kind of touched on it a bit, talking about aviation and
Sure.
why you went into math major. But now as you're up at CEO, would you say that your passions have evolved, or is your passion people, or just
Great question. I'd say my passions have evolved, but my passion isn't any different. It is people, and I've always recognized the importance of people and treating people with respect. As CEO, that hasn't changed at all. And the thing I like about Delta Community Credit Union most of all is the people at Delta Community. Our members, our employees, and when we are in business to help our members, we're in business to serve them. And being not-for-profit gives me the greatest feeling of all, because everything we do for our members goes back to our members. When we earn that profit, and I mentioned we earned $46 million of profit last year, a record for Delta Community, every penny of that went back to our members. And I feel good, and I feel terrific when we're able to help our members with solutions to their financial needs, to help them. Small businesses, that's another example of how credit unions help in an entrepreneurial spirit. When you're a new business owner starting out, you need that loan. It's a risk, and many financial institutions, they don't want to take that kind of risk. credit unions generally are more supportive of taking those kind of risks to help their members, particularly members that are starting off with business loans, that's the only way they're going to get their start. That gives me the greatest thrill of all, and that is very consistent with my passion about people. It's helping people and helping them realize their goals and objectives.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay.
Oh, this way? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Could you talk a little bit about your time in Ernst & Young, and if that you talked a little bit about in the previous question about how your passion was for people, did that not fulfill your passion while working in Ernst & Young?
Yeah.
And did it drive you in any way to leave that organization to pursue an organization like Delta Community Credit Union?
Sure. No, that's a good question. You know, those of you that are familiar with service organizations, there might be a consulting firm, it might be a public accounting firm like Ernst & Young. The thing that I always felt about working in that organization, in that type of organization, that environment is, we were always going out helping clients. You know, I would perform financial audits and help them assess their financial statements and help them find ways to improve their financial statements. But I never felt totally bonded with that client because I was a service provider. But my advice to them might help them, but I was never on their side of the fence, so to speak. And that's something that I felt missing from that service perspective. So that was one of the drivers that caused me to elect to go back to graduate school. I also learned in those 4 years, when I came out of undergrad, by the way, I thought, this is it. I've got all the education I need to be successful, so I'm good to go. And many people stop at that level of education and are very successful. I'm not suggesting a graduate degree is always absolutely necessary, but it certainly helps, because what I learned in those first 4 years was there's so much more to learn that I just didn't appreciate until I was out in the working field. But I still long to want to work for a company where I'm on the other side of the fence. And that's really what helped me decide to go back to graduate school, to get that additional education. And then I was able to dovetail that with going into the airline business, because that was one of my passions as a kid, is aviation. So I got the best of both worlds. The education, I got to join a company and be on the other side, so to speak. So everything I did for that company, it was my company. I was an employee, and that dovetailed with the passion of aviation. So that was a great question. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Hello.
Hey.
So my question is, you mentioned how the company grew from first serving only Delta employees to now serving 11 counties in Georgia.
Right.
Are there any efforts being employed to go beyond these 11 counties being served?
Yeah, you know, what's interesting about credit unions, you can be federally chartered or state chartered. In our case, we're state chartered. The state of Georgia provides our charter, and we are federally insured, just like a bank. So we have regulatory compliance with federal and state. But one of the things is that we apply for the opportunity to serve additional members. And in our case, we're chartered to serve 11 counties in the metro Atlanta area. We have desire to expand, and you know what's important for us, going back to measuring performance, is focusing on, do we want to go to the 12th county and 13th county? Because I could tell you, although it's internal and proprietary or privileged, but we know where we're going to want to expand outside of our 11 county field of membership. But we also recognize there are so many opportunities still within those 11 counties that we're not yet serving. We have members that live very south of Atlanta that are in those counties where we need more branches, for example. Same thing on the north side. Cherokee County, we have a branch. By the way, our branches consist of in-store branches like at a Kroger grocery store. We have retail strip stores in Sandy Springs. We have one that's in a strip shopping center. And then we have standalone branches like the one that's very close to here on 10th Street. We analyze, and we're in the process of analyzing, where should we go next? Where's that within our 11 county footprint today, the opportunities to serve more members and serve them well. And that's where we currently stand. But I'm confident at some point we will expand out of those 11 counties. I think staying in Metro Atlanta is a core focus of ours. You know, we certainly could take our value and go to other parts of Georgia, but I think where we can really capitalize and serve best is to stay in Metro Atlanta, but then really analyze where's the next opportunity for us. So it's something that we're working on hard, and at this point we're not going to make a quick decision, but certainly if we continue on the path we're going, the opportunities really appear very promising to continue growing in Metro Atlanta.
Back to the other side.
Hi. right?
Yep. Is it working?
There you go. Yeah.
You touched earlier on about how people were really important to you and you derived a lot of value working for a nonprofit and about how it was important for you to feel connected to the company. I was just wondering if there's anything else that's important to you when you're trying to find a job. Obviously, you derive a lot of value in connecting with people. So I wanted to know if there are other things that factor into your career decisions and if those affect the 5 pillars of leadership that you talked about.
Yeah, no, a very thoughtful question. You know, for me, I look at the passion. You know, what am I interested in doing? The industry matters. I find great satisfaction in my current employment in talking about our mission, and that dovetails with my passion. People are critical. I want to work for an organization where I'm surrounded by great people. And I promise you, I go to work every morning looking forward to the day. And, you know, there's an awful lot of people that dread getting in the car or commuting to work because they're going to work. I honestly, sincerely love going to work. And it's the people of Delta Community. It's the members that we serve. It's the employees that I work side by side with. And that's also my passion, the people. But lastly, you know, you know, I was looking for other jobs both inside my employer or looking at different employers. It's assessing what opportunities do I still need to be successful to get to that next step, and then being willing to make that move. And that's why I suggested earlier, don't just focus on the glamour job, the fun job, the glitter. Focus on the job that might be ultra tough, it might be painful, it might be long hours. It's probably the job that a lot of people don't want. But if that job is going to provide you that training, that skill set that gets you ready for the next opportunity, by all means, that's the one to go for. And that's also why at Delta Community, I talked about human resource planning and individual development plans where part of our investment in employees is we work with that employee to understand what they want to do at various stages and then helping them find those opportunities in that training. So it's definitely a passion of mine to see people succeed. Hi.
So one of your 5 leadership strategies is the champion core values. How do you and your employee in your organization communicate those core values? Yeah,
Great question, great. For our employees that are coming into Delta Community as new employees, they receive training on the first day. Core values are introduced to them, and because they're so important, they get those initially right away. And then we also have a handbook. We call it Be Our Difference Handbook. And for Delta Community, we are so successful because of our employees. Our employees make the difference for our members each and every day. So we have our Be Our Difference Handbook that focuses specifically on those 5 core values and what they mean and how each employee can embrace those and really integrate those values into their interactions. That's interactions with other employees and interactions with our members and the customers that we're honored to serve.
You said a second ago that when you're looking towards jobs that you're trying to focus on improving some of your skills.
Yeah.
What are some of the specific skills that you're looking to improve?
Yeah. Depending on where I was in my career path, getting leadership experience, for instance. You know, generally you start off as an analyst or senior analyst in a company that if you're in a financial type role where you're an individual contributor. Getting opportunities to manage people is generally an opportunity that you have to seek out. Getting training, you know, I think all of us, if you think about leaders, you can think individually some leaders that were really strong that stand out for you as great leaders. I really liked working for that manager and that individual taught me so many things. And then you maybe have some other managers along your professional career where you're like, yeah, that person had some opportunities to develop themselves. But you know, as I think about seeking new opportunities myself, I always was cognizant of what gaps in my development do I still have, and then how can I go find the opportunities to get the experience. And communication is ultra critical, and that's another thing that's so critical is when you invest in your employees, you communicate to them. You know, we have a program at Delta Community, we call it the Town Hall program, where we have 26 branches and administrative centers across not only Metro Atlanta, but in 3 other states. And once a quarter, leader at Delta Community, the same leader actually visits each one of those branches. So my branch is down south of here off of Virginia Avenue, but every quarter I'm in front of all the employees there and we communicate. We communicate consistently about what's going on in the organization, talking about our mission, talking about what's on the minds of our employees, and that's something that's been so critical is communicating with employees. And we do that every quarter across Metro Atlanta and at those out-of-state branches too. Hi.
When you were a student at college, what feelings did you have about starting your career? Like fears, or did you have a plan what you wanted to shoot for?
Yeah. So your question is, what concerns did I have as I was preparing to get out of school, entering the job market and such? One was, am I going to feel satisfied? I just majored in accounting for 4 years. I'm coming out with a business degree. I'm going to work for an international accounting firm. I haven't done it before. Is this going to be the right decision? And just the natural anxiety of, okay, if this doesn't work out, sort of measuring my performance. If you remember the leadership strategy there, am I going to need to switch jobs soon? How's this decision going to pan out for me? That's probably the biggest single fear I had. I wasn't afraid to take the risk, but nonetheless, I certainly wanted the risk to work, and it did. But then also the key to being a successful leader is measuring performance, and that's also performance of, is this meeting my expectations, or is it time for me to continue filling those opportunity gaps in my professional career and find another opportunity professionally to move on? Sure.
So, as a Delta Community Credit Union member,
is that you? Are you a member?
I am. Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And so, actually, it's funny. I was just thinking about. I remember like growing up in elementary school and having to drive to the Atlanta branch. In elementary school, always being like upset.
The one by the airport?
Yeah, the one by the airport, just because it was such a long drive. And I remember that was the only time I would ever go to Atlanta because I'm from a little bit north of the city.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've just been able to see, I guess, firsthand how Delta Community Credit Union has expanded and been a part of that. And actually, when I actually came here to Georgia Tech, part of the reason I'm here is because I received the DCCU scholarship. So I guess firsthand I've been able to experience how DCCU really just serves its members and how they value that. So I was just wondering if you could touch on a little bit how you as the CEO really motivates your leadership team and employees to not just become complacent with doing things well, but to constantly improve in those ways.
Oh, absolutely. One way. And first of all, congratulations on your scholarship, and thank you for being a member. I hope everything I said about Delta Community you agree with. Okay, and that's unbiased, right? Okay. But no, the leading people is about understanding people and about listening to the people, and that's something that I've been focused on, whether I was an individual contributor in my first year of professional employment all the way up to the role I'm in today. And challenging people. In the financial world, we have budgets, and that's one way that we challenge people. We set aggressive targets, realistic yet aggressive targets, and then we work towards that, and we constantly assess. Is our revenue delivering? How about the revenue on our loan products? Is it coming in as we expected? But it's not just a yes or no. It's more of, if it is coming in better than expected, why? Is it higher volume? Is it that the rate environment has changed? Maybe we're short. Is it because the product we're offering is no longer desired by our members? But working with the team that supports me and the team that leads Delta Community, it's a wonderful group of unique people. There's basically 10 individuals that are experts in their field, but each one is a bit unique and a bit different. And the key for me as a leader is to not just assume that my personal style and preferences must be adapted by those 10 individuals, but rather we have to work together and understand each other, and how can I help the capabilities or the gap capabilities of those leaders develop and prosper. So for me, the leadership style has been about understanding what those folks have and what opportunities they need, and then using measurement of performance, both individual and corporate-wise, to help push the enterprise along. Sure. And thank you for being a member. Hi.
Hi. You talked of employee investment.
Yes.
How have people investing in you throughout your career really enhanced your career?
Oh, absolutely. It's tremendous. And I'd say the The financial investment, yes, that's been there, the compensation, the medical benefits, the retirement programs and things. But to me, that's the lesser of the importance of the investment in me that's happened over the years. Every company I've worked for has given me training and skills and opportunities that I was so privileged to receive. Sure, I worked hard for those companies, but I'm so grateful for those companies to give me the opportunity to learn. And then I've been able to capitalize on those learnings. So, my first 4 years where I worked in Ernst & Young in public accounting, it was a wonderful opportunity. I learned skills and discipline and thought processes that it's stuff that you have to learn on the job. You can't go to a college and learn that. You learn a lot in college, but there's things that you absolutely can only learn on the job. And then being able to capitalize on that and taking that skill set with me to other roles, both within the companies and the future companies that I worked for, that's where I've really benefited. And really it's helped me become the leader I am today, learning from the leaders that I worked for and supported. And as I said, you'll work for leaders throughout your career. Some of them will be A+ leaders, some of them may not be A+ leaders, but learning from both is a tremendous opportunity, and that's also investment in employees. And that communication that I talk about that's so important, as I think about my own personal development, having people talk to me in my career, both counsel as well as just understanding the corporate mission and the corporate values of those companies I was employed at, that had tremendous investment opportunity in me as well. And now I'm privileged to serve Delta Community Credit Union and pass along the benefits and rewards of my 25 years to Delta Community and our 800+ employees. Right. That's a great question.
Hi.
Hi.
So as you continue to grow, you talked about committing to the community. How do you ensure that Delta Community Credit Union is able to stay committed to each of those individual communities, especially outside of Georgia?
Certainly. It's our community is so important to us. It's our name, Delta Community Credit Union. And we invest in communities and in activities within those communities that support our mission. Our mission is to help people get more out of their financial lives. So we're investing in activities and supporting the community through activities such as financial literacy, education, physical well-being. And if you look at the charities and organizations that we support, first of all, applications come in and they're reviewed by a team of Delta Community employees. So it's our Delta Community employees that actually decide where we're going to invest our philanthropic dollars. It's our employees that help us decide what mission should we support this year. And over time, each year we may choose to support an organization this year in 2015, and next year we may support them in a different way. We may next year, instead of giving financial contributions, we may give volunteer hours. Our employees will embrace and be passionate about supporting an organization that way too. So that's really how we assess and how we decide where to put our investment. But they're always focused on the core mission of Delta Community, helping people get more into their financial lives, financial literacy, and physical well-being. Okay.
Having been a chief officer at both a for-profit and nonprofit, can you discuss the different pressures at the top of those organizations?
Sure. I think the one that's just most striking is in a for-profit organization, you have profit goals. And you work very hard to reach those profit goals. And it's very similar to our mission at Delta Community. We have a budget, and our goal is to deliver revenue and bottom line profit. But where the difference starts to come in is what you do with those profits. For-profit organizations generally, if you think on the public side, and that's the ones I've been affiliated with, there's investors. And the company is working to support those investors. On the not-for-profit side at Delta Community, our owners are who we are supporting, and that's how we return all of our profits back to those individuals. So you can see similarities between the mission. How you lead the organizations is very similar. You invest in people. These strategies that I mentioned here, all 5 of those are applicable to a for-profit public company or a not-for-profit company. They're applicable to a service organization. So leading is very similar, but just how the organization operates will tend to be different based on the different motives there.
I've always thought of mixed organizational forms industry is more like the healthcare industry, where the nonprofit hospitals are becoming more like the for-profit ones in service. You don't know what kind of form you're in, because the service usually tends to be bad across the board. But financial services, I never thought of as a mixed organizational form. Are there, so what are the dynamics of differences? I mean, are the kinds of things you're talking about today because you're nonprofit or because you're the Delta Community credit union? How do, in general, how do credit unions differ from community banks or from the bigger banks? And aren't there pressures from those banks to not allow nonprofits in their space?
Yeah. Good questions, and I think if I approach the question and answer from the comparison of the two, you know, we're in very similar product lines. You've got a not-for-profit credit union, and you might have a for-profit bank over here. Both offer a deposit, CDs. The difference is who's going to benefit from the bottom line profit of that organization. A for-profit bank, for example, it has investors, and the investors are the ones that are going to benefit from those profits there. So when a bank charges a fee, or when a bank chooses to deliver a certain dividend or interest rate on a deposit product, it's ultimately trying to maximize the bottom line income of that organization because they're working for their investor. In a not-for-profit credit union like Delta Community Credit Union, we generally are offering higher dividend rates, or on loans, we're offering lower rates on the loans because our profit model is not to benefit independent third parties, but rather to return all of that profit back to our members. They own us. And consequently, that profit we earn allows us to pay it back to our members by offering them those higher deposit rates than what a third party over here is commanding at a for-profit bank. So that's really the difference. When it comes to someone that needs a loan, I think you can go across the board, kind of like your healthcare example. You can go into various financial institutions and the loan product might be similar, but the characteristics and dynamics of how you're evaluated, the risk. I think credit unions are generally more entrepreneurial in spirit, and consequently, you'll see that, you know, even a small business loan as little as $200, a credit union might be willing to take that risk on that member, whereas a for-profit institution may have a different risk profile or a risk tolerance and may not be so willing to do that. That's one of the key differences. But at the end of the day, everything we're doing is to benefit that member. And while we have over 325,000 members, to that one member that's looking for that loan, or that member that's looking for some financial counseling on how to handle a situation, they're the most important member that we have at that given time right there.
Hank, I want to follow up on Terry's question, actually. There's a local radio guy, Clark Howard, who loves credit unions. And I think a lot of members of credit unions love their credit union. And you don't find the same relationship between a customer and a big bank like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Why aren't you just grabbing more and more market share from the bigger banks? I don't understand. Do they have a competitive advantage over you that's hard for a nonprofit to overcome?
Well, you know, the sheer size of the financial institutions, the for-profit institutions, they do have advantages over small not-for-profits like credit unions. You know, one of the things is the IT investment that a large mega bank is able to do. You know, they have a lot of development. You know, Delta Community Credit Union this year, we introduced a new online and mobile banking platform. It's bringing tremendous new opportunities to our members. They can do a lot more themselves on their iPhone. It brings purchase rewards, for example. They can take pictures of checks instead of having to go into a branch. But that's not new for a large mega bank. They've had those tools available for their members or customers. And by the way, another difference, to get back to your question, at Delta Community, our customers are called members. At a bank, they're called customers. We don't have customers, we have members, and they're our owners. But you know, in our case, our members are getting the benefit of the tools that, you know, that I just mentioned, the online and mobile banking refreshment that we did. But we are able to invest in our products and services based on what our members want, and that may be unique, but credit unions as not-for-profit, we bring tremendous value to our owners, and that's the big difference there.
Hi, thanks for coming to Georgia Tech today.
Sure. No, thank you. I enjoyed it.